Kylie here in the garden, and today I'm giving you an update on our worm tower, and we can start assessing whether or not the system is actually working. So let's take a look. Okay guys, so in an effort to learn about worm composting, I created my own DIY worm tower. I do have another video for that and I'll link it up here for you, so if you're interested in seeing how to do that, you can go back and have a look at that video. But today I'm showing you the progress and just discussing more or less how I feel about this little system so far. So the system comprises of 3 buckets. One that is solid, and that makes up the actual base of our worm tower. Then we have 2 buckets on the top, so this is the second bucket. In the base of this bucket we've drilled a few holes, and that essentially seeps any tea into the base bucket here, and you can use that as a liquid fertilizer. Then in the center bucket, the worms will essentially turn that bedding into a rich compost matter. And then in your third and final bucket, it essentially acts as the place where you will be putting your items that you would like composted. Let's first take a look at what's happening in our buckets. Right, so let's start with our base bucket. That is what it currently looks like at the moment. Then we have our middle bucket with the holes drilled into it. And we're going to lift our food scraps and composting bucket off of the top. As you can see, there are quite a few worms in here. There's even a few here coming in and out of the bucket. That's so gross, but in a good way, I suppose. Okay, so as you can see here, we do actually have quite a few worms in this bin, and they are multiplying in size, if anything, which is good to see. Let's check our top layer. Ooh. So inside here I've just got a small piece of paper here, so that when the lid's not on 100% tight, it does still keep them protected from the light. And these are our food scraps that we've been putting in here, and the worms are slowly breaking it down into good compostable soil. So let's have a dig around in here. Oh, there we go. As you can see, we have a few worms in our top layer of soil as well. It's really cool to see. Oh, Jesus. I think that was a lizard. Part of my soul just left my body. Oh. Okay. So this is our main compost bin, and as you can see, it's got a few things in it: potatoes, some cocoa core pieces we had, like the outside of the coconut we had the other day. Ever. As you can see, the worms are breaking this down, and there are definitely worms in the box doing that job. So Duncan obviously has a much larger colony here, and there are eggs everywhere as well, but the worms are doing what is necessary. But this box is reaching a point where something needs to be done. It either needs to be refreshed or restocked or shifted, The plan is essentially to take this box and some of its composted and beautiful soil, worm-rich soil, and use it to start another layer or a secondary, potentially even a third box of worm composting system. Because in the small space that we are working with, this doesn't take up all that much space, but we do not have the space for rotational bays. Now, we also don't have necessarily the same amount to compost that you would on a larger stand or on a larger scale, because a lot of the greens that we do end up having available, things like beetroot leaves and carrot tops and the weeds, they don't always make it to the worm bin because we have chickens and they do like to eat the greens, so we generally give it to them. And our worm bins are used predominantly for food scraps, and we don't have a large amount of food scraps either, because I'm stingy and I like to use as much as I can before it even gets to this point. So with a lot of our vegetable scraps, especially in the winter, we use them to make vegetable stock. Now, coming into the summer, we will have an abundance of green coming into the garden, so the worms will get a fair amount of that, but so too will the chickens. Right, armed with my knowledge about that worm tower, I am now going to hopefully be able to apply that to our worm composting system that we already have. That worm composting system was set up by Duncan, and it has been a little bit neglected because, unfortunately, life. So I offered to take it over, but I wanted to first learn how the worms work and what the system actually requires. So we already have one tote that we currently use as our worm composting bin, and I'm going to add in the two other totes we have, one on top and one at the bottom. The bottom layer will act as the area that catches the worm tea, much like in the worm tower. The middle container will then be the pre-existing worm bin that I've just shown you, and then the top layer will be the new composting area. So the plan is to first and foremost build a bench that worm tower can actually stand on. So that may not happen in this video, but it is definitely coming in the future, so stick around for that. And then I just thought that I would update you on a few things that I've learned along the way in terms of worms and their general upkeep. And so I'm just removing my tea bags insides, the tea leaves themselves, from the actual tea bag. The only reason I do this is because I've heard that some tea bags have plastic fibers in them, and I'm not really sure which one of those are. So away with the tea bag. But I am keeping the tea leaves for the worms. So I'm just coming to feed the worms quickly, and I just wanted to cover a few things that I've learned in this short period of time doing the worms. So as far as what they eat, they do need a good balance between browns and greens. So if you can supply that, that is obviously best. I'm adding things in here like the roots of plants that we've pulled. Your worms will love eating your garden scraps, your weeds and your leaves that you pull off of your plants or your crops. However, it is a good thing just to remember that you don't want to be putting sick or diseased plants into your worm box. So essentially, if you're going to be putting powdery mildew infested leaves into your worm box, that powdery mildew will then be in your soil that you're going to use. So obviously it is in your best interest to try and use the garden scraps that maybe are not diseased, that are in a good condition, so that you're putting that nutrients in here, and while the worms are breaking it down, they are in fact creating nutrients that you're going to put back into your garden. I also use things like food scraps. These are just the stems of the broccoli we had the other day, and some tea from inside of the tea bags, and right at the bottom a couple of coconuts slices. Now I have learned some valuable lessons with my particular worm farm. I need to add in some ventilation, and because this bucket has a lip on it, I think my best bet will be to come through and just make the holes underneath this lip or just below, so that they are shielded and no excess moisture can get in. I do have this piece of paper that I put in here. This keeps the worms sheltered from the direct sunlight, and I generally just leave the lid slightly ajar so that the worms do have some ventilation apart from the gap that runs the edge of the gap that we have running around the back of the bucket. Hey guys, so I just wanted to say thanks for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate it. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye!